Now, if there's anything you want to know about me, it's that I love playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's basically limitless. You can do whatever you want. It's up to the dungeon master and the players to figure out. But there's another reason why I love this beloved game so much. It's because it is a hobby with a hobby. Painting miniatures. Another thing you might know about me, if you do know me, is that I love making Gundam plastic model kits. Gunpla for short. And the thing that I love about Gunpla is that you build and create your own high-quality figure. I don't even like Gundam, but I love the craftsmanship of them just because of the fact that they're so high quality. Even with a high grade, the detail, the articulation, and the accessories can be compared to something like a Figma or an SH Figuarts figure. However, I do love the building and painting part. And that's why I first decided to get into the Dungeons and Dragons painting hobby. And now that I have, I love it so much. So today, I'm teaching you an easy and effective way to paint miniatures. Now, before we get into actually painting figures, I want to talk about which figures you should get. In my opinion, you should get the Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures. Now, this one is actually from a Pathfinder set. This is from a set of Pathfinder miniatures that Nolzur's made that has villagers and people like that, NPCs basically. However, the thing that I really like about Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures is, first of all, they're incredibly detailed. Let me take another miniature from the Nolzur's Villager set. You can see all of the little wrinkles in her clothes, all the little textures and crevices in the furs, and even some of the texture on the leather sheath. These are very detailed figures. The thing I probably like most about them, though, is that they are officially licensed by Wizards of the Coast, and they are official D&D miniatures. That means you're getting miniatures of official characters from the Monsters Guidebook. You're not getting any generic dragons or generic orcs. You're getting figures based off of the artwork in the Monster Manual. Let me bring in an example. I have not painted any of these yet. And this is actually a pretty small sample size, but even just from this small sample size, you can see there is a lot of diversity in these. They basically have a miniature for almost every single monster in D&D. So as you can see, even with these small sets, you get a very large diversity, and you get figures that are officially based off of the artwork. However, today we're going to be painting a miniature from Hero Forge. Hero Forge is a website where you basically make your own miniatures and you order them. So this is a really good option for player characters. If a player wants a miniature that is completely personalized to their own character, Hero Forge is a great option. However, keep in mind that these are very expensive. It cost me $50 to get this miniature of Calic, and this miniature of my friend Mitchell's character, Elias. Yes, $50 for two very tiny pieces of plastic. Anyways, let us get started. Now first, let's talk materials. One of the things you are going to need, since miniatures are very, very tiny, are specialized Dungeons and Dragons brushes. I got this set of brushes for $10. You get 3 brushes, which are integral to painting your figure. First of all, you have the normal brush. This is what they call the base coat brush. This is basically what you use to paint very large segments of color. So for example, this entire cloak is going to be black, so we could all just paint that with this brush. This right here, if it'll focus, is the detail brush. This is for much more small parts. So for example, these little mushrooms on the base, we could just paint those with that. And finally, the dry brush. Now, what is dry brushing? It's basically where you take a little bit of paint and you dip it inside, you wipe off a lot of it until there's not very much on the brush anymore, and you just lightly brush across metal surfaces to kind of give them a nice scratchy look. Now that we have our brushes, let's talk paints. I would recommend using specialty hobby paints like those from Tamiya, but if you don't have those like I do, you can just use normal acrylics. There is nothing wrong with that. So the first thing I'm going to do, since it is the largest segment of our character, and probably the easiest to paint, is the cloak. As I said before, this cloak is going to be black, so of course we just have some normal black paint. Again, I'm using the base coat brush, and we're just gonna paint around. Now you are going to have to kind of finesse around little crevices and stuff so that you get all of it. Obviously, you can get multiple coats in, but this video is kind of meant for people who don't really have the time or skill to paint efficiently, so you can get away with one coat if you would like. Here we go. We have painted the cloak black. As you can tell, this is a very rough paint job, but another word of advice, do not worry about things that have not been colored yet. Just paint what needs to be painted. Especially for little details like this dagger here, because we're gonna touch that up soon. Remember, we're not trying to make an absolute masterpiece here. We're just trying to make something that is presentable. Remember, these are very, very tiny figures. You put this on the board and people will recognize it. Now that we have that, I kind of imagine the inside and lining of his cloak to be brown. So we are going to be giving him some brown details. There are other things that are also brown as well, and we will paint those too. We have added some brown. Again, not the cleanest paint job, but since we're very early in the painting process, that's okay. Plus, I am planning on touching up a lot of these blotches and areas with black paint again, just to make it look nice. Especially the base. Don't worry about the base. That's probably the least important part of the figure. We're gonna get all of that done after we're done with the character itself. Now that we're done with most of the color on this, namely the cloak, we're going to start working on the metallic parts, namely the daggers and the shoulder pads. You can probably tell I like to get my brushes very messy. It's just kind of a habit of mine. I don't know what's up with that really. But we can clean our brushes very easily. I'm also going to be teaching you how to clean your brushes effectively. You don't want to be too harsh with them. Also, don't leave them in the water upside down. That's not good for the bristles. You're just going to want to give it a little swirl. Keep checking. You could totally see the color change, watching all the water get off. And every few seconds, take the brush out of the water and check to make sure. And once it's mostly clean, just wipe it with a towel. Let me move this many out of the way. And you just, yeah, pretty much. Just, and one thing I like to do, let me focus, is, if the brush is a little misshapen, just pinch it. Just pinch it and try to reshape the brush. Now we have a nice clean brush again. We could keep going. Man, I can't believe I still have this tiny little canister of paint to this day. I feel like I've bought this silver paint like 3 years ago, and I'm still using it. Are you guys proud of this grip here? I have the figure held with these two hands, with these two fingers, and this brush with these two fingers. Anyways, the daggers, at least to me, look just fine, even great as is. But, just to teach you, I am going to be dry brushing these. I don't want to make them look too worn. So usually whenever we're trying to make a metal piece look very worn, we usually use a lighter silver to add scratches or brown to make rust. But since I am probably going to be giving all of my miniatures a black wash, once I can get one, I'm just going to be dry brushing it black. Also, if you're wondering what a wash is, it's just a very, very thin paint that you just, wash all over the figure, and it gets into all the little crevices of it and shows all the details. Anyways, let's get started. Of course, we have our dry brush. You're also going to want to grab a tissue. I am going to grab a new tissue just because the one I've been using so far is, of course, wet, and we don't want that right now. So you're just going to want to dip it in there. You don't want to get too much on there. Yeah, about that much. That's good. You're just going to want to brush along the tissue until you get your desired consistency. And just run it along here. As you can see, it's already making it look a bit worn, which is exactly what we want. If you ever run out of paint, don't hesitate to dip it back in, give a little dry brush, and you just keep going, just like that. And now that dagger looks even better in my opinion. As you can see, these shoulder pads look very nice. These turned out really good, actually. I like how these came out. Now, some of the brown kind of mixed into the cargo, but that's okay, because I actually did want a darker color. I just kind of begrudgingly used this tan that I have, so that's perfect. I'm really proud of this. I'm really proud of the legs, because usually I have problems painting things inside of cloaks, but this turned out pretty well. Now, right before we get onto the most important detail, the face and the ears, I'm going to be doing the backpack. And I kind of imagine this being kind of a cargo green color. Wow, that backpack turned out really well. Now, obviously, I did make a few screw-ups, like here and here. But again, we are going to be touching this up. Speaking of which, we only have 3 more things to do. The face, the base, and touching up. Face and base rhyme. Now, remember when I was going to mix blue and silver to create a metallic blue? Well, I did have metallic blue, but thankfully, I do want a very specific shade of brown. So this is the perfect time to teach you how to mix colors. Really, just go with your gut, go with your instinct. Of course, many high-end quality paints, again, like Tamiya, have measurements for specific colors. But we do not have the luxury of that. So if you do have just normal paints like me, just use your gut. A lot of painting skills from Dungeons & Dragons painting applies a lot to Gundam building. Again, like color mixing, because you want to get that perfect mixture to make it accurate to the anime. And, wait a second, let me grab a Gundam off of my shelf here. Dry brushing is a very important part of Gundam building because these are robots and they're mostly made out of metal and they're war machines. So you want to make them look a little roughed up. You want to make them look nice. But enough of that. We have time for a Gundam episode of Craft Time. For now, we're talking about D&D, and we're almost done with this little guy. Obviously, for something as small as the face, we want to use a very tiny brush, and that's where our detail brush comes in. We just go all around there, so let's get started. See, that wasn't so bad. It turned out all right, even though I did kind of mess up back here. But that's perfect because we are going to get to the next step, touch-up, after I do one thing. When it comes to very small figures like D&D miniatures, I usually don't really care about painting the face that much. Now obviously if they have something like a beard or a mask, which takes more precision to paint, then yes, I am going to take the time to make them look nice. But if we just have, take for example this dude right here, where his beard is mostly out of the way from the face, kind of looks like an Amish dude. But I just paint the face, that's it. But for something like a cat or a dog, where the nose is very defined, I am going to add a little touch. What am I going to do, you may ask? I'm just going to take some normal brown, get a little bit of it on my brush. Not too much, because I don't want to make a big ol' splotch on his face, or else it'll be ruined. And then we just go up to his face. I wanted to make sure I didn't rub off any paint while grabbing him. And we're just gonna boop right on his nose. Boop, boop. Do it as many times as you think you need. But there we go. Now he's got a cute little cat nose. Now that we're done with that, it's time for cleanup. Wow, congratulations. You just got done with the first part of painting your miniature. Now the only thing we have to do is paint our base. The base looks very nice. However, I am going to be touching up a few things with some brown because I accidentally painted over the boots and a little bit of the cloak. And now we are essentially done. However, with a lot of these Hero Forge figures, they have a band at the bottom. And what I like to do to just make that look a bit more sleek is basically just paint it black. Good job, you did it. You completed your Dungeons & Dragons miniature. It looks great and ready to be on the board. Congratulations, you just painted your first Dungeons & Dragons miniature. Keep painting more and your friends will absolutely love you for creating the best Dungeons & Dragons campaign of all time. Just be prepared for heaps of unpainted miniatures and even unopened ones. Hey guys, it's me, Jackson. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really hope it taught you some things, and if you're not part of the Dungeons & Dragons fandom already, hopefully it showed you a new hobby. If you want to help me out, you could press the like button. You could subscribe to this channel, which would be really nice. And commenting is really good too. That helps me get it recommended. Thank you guys. Share this with your friends and stay awesome.